Hi, everybody. It's Rick DiClemente with Star Self and Astrology Unplugged. Tonight, our special guest, our specialist with the rise of the divine feminine, following in the footsteps of when we had Sally Patton on, who was excellent. We have Sajit Greene. We'll be talking about her in just a second, from New Mexico, and way across the country, up in that little tiny Rhode Island, we have Cathy Pagano. I'll be reading their bios and telling you more about it. A couple little technical items. I will be having to mute everybody because when people come through on iPhones, they don't know to mute their sound, their microphone, and that comes out as static. So I'm not shutting you off on purpose, and all you need to do is raise your hand and I will make sure you're unmuted. Okay. Let's see here. Okay, with us tonight is a good friend of mine for at least the past 10 years, Cathy Pagano, out of Rhode Island. Cathy and I talk a lot of times about astrology, but many times I call her because she's a dream specialist, and she's really good about dreams. She is a Jungian who studied in Switzerland. She is a Jungian psychoanalyst, an archetypal astrologer, a soul coach, and a writer. She writes these marvelous little releases every month on the full moon, etc. And tonight's full moon is exceptional because the moon is rising right across the ascendant while the moon is gaining speed towards a full moon. The T-square is to Neptune at the bottom. The moon is rising, and at the top of the chart sits Jupiter. She is the author of a book on the goddess called Wisdom's Daughter, which is how women can change the world. A lot of times in our group, there's a lot of frustration. People get excited, but they don't know what they can do. So tonight we're going to focus on that. She teaches wise women salons, as opposed to me, I teach the wise guys. She teaches the wise women salons on using this goddess energy to create a deep connection to the soul. Using the gifts of feminine consciousness, Cathy works with astrology, tarot, symbolic language. She's excellent on dreams and journeying to liberate our feminine gifts from patriarchy's shackles. And it's time all you guys step aside. We can't do it. We haven't done it. Face it, give up, and get out of the way. That's simple. Get out of the way. We don't need another war. Okay? And she'll tell you all about it in a second. That's Cathy Pagano. Our other guest from New Mexico is Sajit Greene. I will be posting their URLs here in a few minutes so you can link to them and get on their newsletters, whatever you would like to do. She is an evolutionary astrologer, a soul guide, an artist who assists people on their soul journey through a unique transformational process. Sajit began her work with the divine feminine through sensual dance workshops for women that were focused on empowerment and expanding pleasure. Ooh, I got to hear about that. Sajit has facilitated many women's circles and ceremonies. She has co-facilitated an online group with Sally Patton, who you'll remember was our guest a few months ago on this same subject. And it is about reuniting the divine masculine with the divine feminine. Her current passion is to more deeply understand and more fully embody the fierce aspects of the divine feminine with Kali, Mary Magdalene, Sekhmet, Eris, and Lilith. So I'm going to be asking questions tonight about Eris, because Eris is our new quote-unquote mini-planet. And she's really, really activated now about the last 12 years. And I want to hear more about what the ladies have to say about that. So both of you, welcome aboard. And it's so nice to have you. And I know we'll have lots of questions tonight about the awakening of feminine. So whichever you would like to start, explain us a little bit in layman's terms. What does this mean? If you can give us a concept of how big this is, because I can sense how big this is. What's the awakening of the divine feminine about, Cathy?
Well, First of all, the older people among us, we began to study this in the 60s and 70s. And because of the work I did with an image of the goddess as wisdom, as the woman clothed with the sun, standing on the moon, crowned with stars, in labor, giving birth to the Savior. It's from that crazy book of Revelations, which right-wing fundamentalist Christians love to talk about, but they never talk about her. And we listen to Nostradamus, we go on journeys, and basically the book of Revelation is sort of one of many Jewish apocalyptic writings, okay, in that tradition. But if you look at some of it, it really is resonating what's going on today. But to me, the day the goddess came back was when, in 1969, when we saw the earth rising above the moon. There she was, the woman clothed with the sun, standing on the moon, crowned with stars. So I really feel like when that moment of them looking at Earth from the moon, that was when goddess awareness really came back strongly. Although many of the Christian mystics, strange people, the Philadelphians, there's groups of people who really concentrated on this image of wisdom, the woman clothed with the sun. I really feel like that was the return of the goddess. I also think Carl Jung really opened up that realm because he valued the unconscious. So even though he was one of you great guys, and the men are part of this too, but we women, I don't know about how you think of this, Sajit, but we were the ones who were imprisoned. We were the ones who were second-class citizens. So we were the ones who got this chance to say, I'm going to be free. And I think that's part of the trouble with the masculine. Men think they're free already, and they don't want to admit they're not. Do you know what I mean? And if they would just get a little humble and say, we are not free, and how do you do this, then we will teach them.
That's the truth.
You know? Mm-hmm. But to me, that was the defining moment when, and people like just sort of woke up. And then, of course, all the wonderful people who wrote about the goddess back in the 70s. In the 80s, and and some of them were Jungians. Noor Hall, The Moon and the Goddess. We got Richard Whitmont, The Return of the Goddess. Marion Woodman. We have a lot of people, a lot of Jungians, especially because one of the realms of the feminine is the unconscious, because we have pushed the feminine away, and we've hidden her away behind the devil, if you will. We've hidden her behind, don't get into your feelings. I mean, now we do. Now we're listening to our feelings and our intuition. But back when I was little, in the 50s and 60s, don't daydream. What are you doing? You're feeling that, you're wrong, you're crazy. Just 100 years ago, women were put in crazy houses because they were hysterical.
Hysterical, that's right. One thing I want to point out here is how important this is when you see something. This is right in line with quantum mechanics. It doesn't exist until you see it. Now, what I'm talking about is 1930, when we saw Pluto for the first time. It's kind of like Pluto didn't exist until we saw it. Of course it did. But then came Hitler, then came nuclear weapons. The same with Uranus, the same with Neptune, the same with Eris now. I told a friend about this once. He said, that's ridiculous. We just got bigger telescopes. I said, it doesn't work that way. We see these planets when we're ready to see them. Now, Sajit, a wonderful opening by Cathy. What does that mean now? You can feel it. But what does that mean now? Because this is for the whole planet.
So in terms of Uranus, in terms of Eris?
In terms of we're ready to see the feminine now. What does that mean that we're ready?
So one of the things that's really important for me to share, I feel, is that the divine feminine is not just like one energy or has one manifestation or one expression. And I think that I look at it as there being a yin expression and a yang expression of the divine feminine. There's also a yin expression of the divine masculine and a yang expression of the divine masculine. But I'm going to set aside for now talking about the divine masculine. That could be a whole nother show. But in terms of the divine feminine, I feel very strongly that the yin aspect of the divine feminine, which to me is like the Mother Mary energy, or the mother, the archetype of the mother, is very nurturing, it's watery, it's the womb, it's embracing or enclosing, and very gentle and soft and compassionate. And even though the divine feminine has been denigrated and pushed down into the shadow, patriarchy could at least somewhat tolerate the yin aspect, or the gentle divine feminine.
Tell us about, beside this super theory, which I could listen forever, beside that, how do we see that? Where are we seeing this? How is it manifesting?
Right, so I'm getting to that. Yeah.
Okay.
So what I want to say is that although the mother aspect, or the gentle aspect of the divine feminine, has been at least somewhat allowed, what has been not allowed at all under patriarchy is the yang, or what I call the fierce aspect of the divine feminine, because that scares the shit out of the patriarchy, because it's powerful, because it's wild. It's not something that can be easily controlled, even though it has been pushed down and repressed. So to me, Eris is one of the fierce faces of the divine feminine. And that's what's so needed now. It's like, yes, love is always needed and love is always here. And so to me, that's more the mothering aspect. But what we really need at this point is the fierceness to be able to say no to the patriarchy. No, we're not going to allow this abuse of power. No, we're not going to allow this raping of the Mother Earth. And so to me, Eris is that fierceness. And in
Wonderful.
The myth of Eris that's come down to us, I think it's a more of a patriarchal version of her story, is that, she's called the goddess of discord, and that she was just, kind of miffed because she wasn't invited to a party. Well, my interpretation of that is that it's the fierce divine feminine who's pissed off because she was not invited to the party of patriarchy. That's what she was being excluded from. And she's now rising up to say, no, we're not going to take this shit anymore. And that fiery yang energy is very activating. And so it calls us to take action and not just be in a yin place of receptivity.
How do we see the fierce side of Eris replacing the men that just want to throw bombs back and forth all the time, and resulting in what Gandhi did with the passivity? Gandhi was very powerful, but he was very passive. And you saw he created a whole new country and stood up to the British Empire by not being aggressive. How does that interplay, you guys?
Can I answer?
Go ahead, Cathy.
Oh, okay. You sure?
Yes.
Well, in the myth, she's called the goddess of discord. When we look at what discord means, it means against the heart. Okay, so she only gets crazy and fierce when you go against the heart. And so when we're heart-centered, we can be fierce and stand up to what's killing the heart, what goes against the heart. She's the defender of the heart, discord against the core, the heart, the core. And so so we manifest Eris when we say no, because it goes against the heart. Yeah. And of course, patriarchy has tried to cut us off from our hearts. Love is the one power that they couldn't control, so they've tried to kill it or put it into that whole mythic romantic love, the myth of romantic love, where there's only one person or you die if you don't get that person. Do you know what I mean? And so you have to be true to your husband or whoever. Do you know what I mean? So now we're breaking free of those chains because of the 60s, and the wildness of that energy and us, starting to explore things, especially our sexuality, which I know that you're going to talk about, and which which is part of it. And so we're getting back to that place where we're coming from our heart. And that's why we can have Eros as our defender, or we can walk into her and become her, take her on energetically, to stop things that go against the heart.
Yes, I totally agree. And the piece that I want to bring in astrologically is about the fact that Eris and Uranus have been conjunct. I mean, there was the exact conjunction last, I think it was in June was the first one, and then there's been 2 more. Now Uranus has moved a little bit past her, but she's still, Uranus is still, I would say, within orb of, influencing that sense of connection with Eris. So Uranus is the awakener and the liberator and the rebel and the revolutionary. And so I think this is a time that's a revolutionary time of the divine feminine. It's not a time of just being passive and expressing.
So that should make the fierce side of her. That should make the fierce side of her even more in display now, since it's in Aries.
And in Aries, yes, that warrior energy.
That's
the warrior.
The males are like, you bunch of crazy feminists, sit down. You're getting hysterical on us, but they're not getting the point. They're not getting the point. Let me ask you something. What's controlling this? Is it the wisdom of God? It's almost like an invisible hand that is saying, okay, you guys are such a mess. Let's bring in the feminine now. Where is that coming from in the overall timing of the eras?
May I?
Yeah.
This is sort of what I've been working on. Once again, we're at the end of an age, okay? And the divine feminine always takes people out into death and brings people into life. And this image of the woman clothed with the sun, if you look at it, and as many goddess people know, when we look at a god or a goddess, we see what they're holding or how they're standing or how they're, what they're, what implements they have. Like when Sekhmet is sitting, she's at peace, but if she stands, watch out. And if she starts to walk, you're screwed. Okay? So you look at all the goddesses and you look at the energies like Aphrodite. I talk a lot about her because she's the goddess of the body. Aphrodite is always shown dressed, undressing, okay, or naked. And so that her magic, her power is, look, it's in the body. So to go back to this image, at the changing of the ages, we get this story about the woman clothed with the sun. She's not a goddess. So she's us. It's the incarnation of the goddess within us. And she's clothed with the sun. And that's, to me, is what Jungians call a father's daughter. We're all father's daughters. The first part of the feminist movement was very much a father's daughters part of the movement. We need equal pay. It was all about outer things. The second part is all about inner processes, I think. So anyway, here she is clothed with the sun, which means we know how to think. Okay, but she's standing on the moon. She's standing on the unconscious. And it's about how do we listen to our unconscious, to the world around us, the earth, our inner self, and let it arise through us, through dreams, through journeying, through that intuition. And then we name it with the sun that clothes us. And then we have the crown of stars, which is our spiritual principles. And so to me, she's coming back because we need wisdom. Who asks for wisdom anymore? King Solomon, we have him, but we don't see that with anyone saying, of all the gifts that I would like wisdom. The men just don't ask for it anymore. But we women have wisdom. We really do. And that, I think, is what the God force or the spirit is sending back in. Wisdom. Okay, wisdom to be fierce when we need to be. I don't know if I'd call the feminine passive as much as receptive. The feminine is the part of us that's open to hearing the anima mundi, the world soul, or to open to each other, or open to ourselves. So it's the part of us that is receptive to listening to something beyond ourselves. So I think the reason that it's so big now is because we are at this transition, and the goddess always is the one who gives birth. And we are the ones who have to give birth.
Thank goddess.
Pardon me?
Thank goddess.
Thank goddess is right.
Yeah.
What's your reply?
So, again, I really have a very strong focus right now on, again, what I call the fierce face of the divine feminine. So to me, it's not just about receptive. It's about the active aspect, and birthing is very active. Personally, I've actually never birthed a baby, but from everything I know, it's a pretty active process.
I've had 4. It's very active.
It's very active.
She isn't just receptive, she's both. And that's
Yes,
what I think
both.
we need to talk about.
Yes.
Only patriarchy cuts it in half.
Yes.
The divine
Yes.
feminine is receptive and active.
And I think that in terms of the timing of, right now, like, why is this Eris energy so strong and this fierce aspect of divine feminine so strong, is because it is a time of saying enough is enough. That fierceness to say no more cutting off from the heart, no more abuse of love, and those who are vulnerable, and creating the safety for there to be a safe place for compassion and love to thrive, and also to have that fierceness of the birthing process, that creatrix energy of the divine feminine, that we're birthing something new. We're not going back to matriarchy. I want to kind of take issue with what you said, Rick, in your posting on Facebook, where you said that, well, it's time to, kind of put away the patriarch and bring back the matriarch. But it's not about going back to patriarchal
partnership. It's partnership.
Partnership is the integration of
Is
the
this
divine
why,
masculine and the divine feminine, not the distorted masculine.
Is this why we're seeing so many males, quote unquote, develop their female side now? I mean, never in history, well, modern history, have you seen so many men who are more sensitive. They're more in touch with their whole feeling spectrum. Is this why? Because that part and the animal part is rising?
Well, having 3 sons, I did bring them up to not be so afraid of feelings, even though they're guys. And so, you have to really dig at them sometimes. But, I wouldn't say that we haven't had it. Look at the Celtic warriors.
No, I'm not
Warriors.
saying that, but I mean, in general, we've had, might is right. And you take my country, I take your country, and Israel and Palestine, Israel and Palestine, and
right.
It never ends.
Right.
I think that the kind of it started in the 80s, it seemed like to me, with the whole sensitive new age guy thing. What was it called? A snag? A sensitive new age guy.
Oh,
and
God.
I think that what was going on at that time in the 80s is that the men were trying to reconnect with their more feminine side, and women, feminists especially, were really taking on a lot of the kind of the more masculine, the more I would say maybe some of the more negative aspects, actually, of like the distorted masculine, as a way to try to experience and express power. And I think that we're in a very different time now, both men and women, where women don't have to take on the traditional masculine traits to feel powerful, and also men don't have to become effeminate. That there's a new way of integration and balance within. And I also think it's so powerful that we're seeing so many people who are having different relationships with their gender and with their sexuality, and that now that's becoming a spectrum, a whole spectrum of gender and sexuality, rather than the either or, the duality that we were sort of locked into previously.
And also in the 80s, you saw shocking news. Women enjoyed sex. And they started coming out, and they started to move instead of just be there. And so that was shocking to society.
Yeah. Too, part of our trouble as a society is we don't have initiations for men. This is just my opinion of the men I've met, but the guys that didn't go to Vietnam never grew up. Okay, not that I would want them to go to Vietnam and go through that horror, but there's just a subtle feeling of where are the men, okay? To me, a lot of them still feel like boys, okay? And I think that as a culture, we don't initiate our children into anything. And so they're left hanging. And at least women have the initiation of getting our menses, of getting pregnant, of growing older, becoming the goddess, the maiden, the mother of the crone. And then the masculine religions are, the god is so removed, whereas the feminine religion is the goddess is in us.
Tell us about what that failure to have these rites of passage, how it hurts the men.
Well, there's this sense, to me, our culture, because patriarchy is so rigid right now, we're at the end of it. We're at the end of that Pluto cycle, which is not only for America, I think, but for the world in many ways. You know, the rigidness of the identity, okay, created a whole society, more so in America, I think, than in other countries, because they're more rooted in their past. My mind just went blank. Getting old sucks.
What do
About
you
initiation.
mean we're at the end of a Pluto cycle? What does that mean?
Pardon me?
What does that mean? We're at the end of what Pluto cycle?
Well, we're at the end of the Pluto cycle for America.
Yes, the Pluto,
We're getting towards it.
Pluto return, yes.
Yeah, we're getting towards the end of the Pluto return.
Well, that's big, yeah.
You know, and I think that the younger kids, when I was out in Las Vegas, I hung out with a lot of the younger crowd, my kids' age. And the young men, they've been brought up by single mothers, and they haven't had to go into those sharp, you know, like, this is who you have to be, which is, you know, foments shame and low self-worth, all of the negative things that we've learned from patriarchy about ourselves. So with these mothers who have raised their sons to be more open, I'm seeing these younger men, do you know what I mean? Being gentle warriors, you know, spiritual warriors, and being open to different kinds of sexuality, and being open to the goddess, to the worship of the feminine, to honoring it. Don't you think, I just wish men would honor women and see us with respect and equality, and not go, really, when we say things, because I think that would go a long way towards shifting men, if they would actually go, oh, really? You think that? You crazy woman, you. Okay, let's run. Let's run with the wolves. Do you know what I mean? Rather than going, no, we can't do that. To me, men are afraid of magic.
Oh, I agree. They are.
The magical, imagination.
Get to work, NFL, get your beer, get out in your Jeep, go mudding out, then you're fine.
Yeah.
Well, that's
the distorted masculine. That's not the divine masculine. And we don't really have many role models of men who embody the divine masculine in a very, you know, balanced, healthy way. There's what I refer to as the distorted masculine. That's about, you know, the abuse of power, or power over rather than power with. And really I
thought Obama was a pretty good balance.
He's a nice balance.
Feminine. I thought he was a very good.
Who?
Obama.
I thought he was a very good balance, and you could see how he was not really honored by a lot of men, and a lot of people looked past him, and they weren't quite ready for him. They're more ready for him than they were back when Jimmy Carter came on. He was way ahead of his time, too. So what do you see? You know, I'm here every week, and I talk to so many people. What do you tell the young women and the young men when people are scared? We knew this was coming 10 years ago. People want to do something. What can they do to advance the rise of the feminine? What can people do?
Do you want to go, or should I?
Go ahead.
I'm a Gemini ascendant, and so this new moon is right on my ascendant.
You want to wind Cathy up? Go.
You know what we can all do? We can follow our heart, which means that we will dump patriarchy's rules. Okay? Which would mean, don't be afraid. If you hate your job, what do you really love? Figure out a way to dump your job and do what you love. What if, we have this thing in our society, you got to work. It's that stupid Protestant work ethic that, was hammered into our ancestors and just seeped into our DNA and our bones. If you work and make money, God loves you. If you don't, you're a sinner. And so just even getting people to slow down, and, like even in corporate work, corporations don't care about you. So why are you working so hard? Why are you working 90 hours a week for them? It's about following your heart and saying, well, you know what? I don't really need this much money, and I don't need to buy a lot of junk from China. that's going to get junked in a month. So it's about how we shift our lives. And I think that's the thing that's going to do it. You know, Joseph Campbell's follow your bliss, follow your heart, or Carl Jung, get individuated. Who are you really? Don't throw off the chains, okay, of patriarchal identity of how you should live your life and create a life. Be creative. Because I think the divine feminine is also the creative imagination. And I think the imagination has been downplayed and also taken over by mass media. Okay, because stories change us. Scheherazade, she tells the stories that change, that even changes the tyrant, okay, and redeems her world through the imagination. But we listen to corporate stories, so people's, you know, vision and imagination is shut down. And I think imagination too is another way we find the divine feminine.
And I would to piggyback on that, or, you know, add to that. So I think it's a lot about connecting with our intuition, trusting our intuition, which is also that imaginal realm, and connecting with the heart, which there's so many different ways to connect with the heart. You know, there's people doing heart math, and there's different spiritual paths. So many spiritual paths is really about reconnecting with the heart, which is really love, to really, you know, reconnect with love. And also, again, in terms of the yang or the fierce aspect, that it's also about how does each of us feel called to action. And so I don't feel like it's my job or my role to tell people how to take action, right, but to facilitate people through a process where they can come to their own
exactly,
listening to how they're called to take action. Because this is the time of taking action. Enough is enough.
Another thing that I run into, forgive me, is you're right. It's not our job to tell them what their path is, but I do find it's my job to help them identify the blockages. And identify them. Boy, they do the work themselves.
Of course.
Get out of the way, and it just comes out.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful to watch how evolution is speeding up. This whole process is just screaming. It's going by so quickly now compared to the old days. You had to dig and dig and dig to get at somebody's blockages, even 8 years ago.
Well, because all of us older people went through the hard work, and now we've created critical mass, and now it's easier for people to get conscious. They have actually the literal information. They have the classes and everything, but I think it's lightened up. But I have to say, thank you, Donald Trump, you idiot, because you've come in and you have made everybody fierce, okay? You've made us fierce. Hillary wouldn't have, okay?
That's right.
Bernie.
That's right.
I have Bernie friends who wanted him to like lead the way into the promised land. And it was like, no, that's not why he's here, you know? So part of it is once again, you're going back to that crazy book of Revelations. After the woman gives birth, the dragon of unconsciousness comes to eat her up. And she flees to the desert, and she gets the wings of an eagle, which is the wisdom. So, you know, part of it is the whole woman's movement died out in the 90s. After Clarissa Estes wrote Women Who Run with the Wolves, it was very hard to get any goddess books published for a long, long time.
Well,
and the feminine kind of got, and then feminism, people sort of said, no, that's no good. And the young kids were growing up, and, I don't know if I'm a feminist or not. But now feminism is different. It's sisterhood. It isn't about, I'm going to go out and break that glass ceiling. It's more, I have sisters. Okay, and I'm part of the earth.
I'm very big into symbology, very big. And I know you're really good at this. What are the symbols you're seeing on a global scale, national scale? What are the symbols that are taking your attention?
Well, I don't know. What do you think, Sajit? I'm thinking that it's more that we're connecting to the earth. So we have the water, the purity, like finally we're down to the basics, which is the goddess.
The whole standing rock movement. And many Kuchoni, or however you say it, water is life. and that movement was very much, I think, led by the women, by the female elders. Yeah, that's a really great example of a symbol.
The March on Washington.
And yeah, the Women's March for sure. I was going to come tonight wearing my pink pussy hat, but I decided that it would mess up my hair too much.
I found out there were people in yarn shops in the South that refused to sell pink yarn during those times. It was too radical.
There's such fear. I would like to say one thing, because of course it goes and then it leaves me. I think the biggest thing that the feminine gives us is the ability to change. And I think patriarchy is so rigid, and it's so afraid of change, and it's so afraid of death that it's creating death all over, so it doesn't have to die. Okay, but the goddess, as the moon, says, hey, babe, everything changes. So I noticed that people go out now. I used to walk around at night as an astrologer and say, why aren't people out looking at this, eclipse or this, that, now? But you go down to the beach now and people are there watching the full moon rise. People are waking up to nature again in a different way, and they're looking at the heavens, and so I think the symbols, the big symbols for me were things like tidal wave dreams, dreams about stars shifting. Do you know what I mean? People dream about the shifting of constellations. As the old dies, the new come in. I've seen that. Definitely a lot of tidal wave dreams in the past, about the new wave coming in. And I think for a while girls got into, I'm a goddess, but they weren't at all. Okay. It was like, you just can't say you're a goddess and then act like a stupid little girl and, and do what the patriarchy wants you to do. A goddess doesn't do that. And so I think women are like really coming into self-ownership because of the fact that the evil white guys are out in force right now, and they've ripped off their masks. They're not hiding anymore.
That's right.
Okay, so we needed that's like Satan or the dragon. I love dragons, so I hate to say it's a dragon, but in the book of Revelations, it's a dragon, who confronts the woman, and then it's like, nope, war in heaven. Come and get me, buddy. You can only kill me, And I think basically women aren't afraid of death. So it's like we're saying, go ahead. Okay, you can kill me, but you're not killing the world, and you're not killing my kids, and you're not killing my people. So I think that it's that kind of freedom of not being afraid.
Very good. Sajit?
I'm not really that much attuned to symbols, so I don't feel like that's really a question that I have a great response to. So maybe throw me another question.
One of the questions I have is, I got these friends of mine that they just want to bomb somebody. They don't know who to bomb, but we got to go bomb somebody because these terrorists keep doing their thing. And if we just go bomb everybody, maybe that would work. I mean, where does that just peter out? How does that just, there's nowhere to go with your bombs. Who are you going to shoot? Where's your drone going to go? How does that patriarchal symbol just die out? How do we get one up on it? How do we continue and rise the climate again and find hope for ourselves?
I mean, it sounds kind of like a cliche, but love is the answer. And as you know, Rick, I'm a Course in Miracles, Course of Love, Way of Mastery student. And so it's really an interesting question to me about, I think about the story of Sekhmet or the story of Kali, where, there's all this war going on. And in both the Kali story and the Sekhmet story, there's sort of like this sense of the goddess sort of raging out of control and becoming very bloodthirsty. And I kind of feel like we're seeing that right now, not just with the wars, but people flipping out, individuals flipping out and killing people. I mean, it's not just the terrorists. It's not just the wars that we're involved in. It's like just bursting out everywhere. Like this Aries energy is just kind of out of control.
What about a 15-second primer on Sekhmet?
Oh, okay.
What was Sekhmet?
Okay.
Sekhmet is a lion-headed goddess from the ancient Egyptian pantheon of gods and goddesses. And her story is that, and maybe you can help me out with this, Cathy, if I don't get it quite right. You're probably much better with the storytelling than I am. But there was some kind of almost like a war between good and evil going on the planet. And Sekhmet kind of loosed her power and her rage and came, into the earth plane and started killing kind of the bad guys. But her killing, it kind of became almost she became almost like drunk on the blood. And there came a point where there needed to be an intervention so that the divine feminine, especially the fierce divine feminine, needs to be integrated with wisdom and with the heart, and with love and with the masculine, the divine masculine's discernment and ability to contain things. The masculine is not just about, aggression and violence and going out there and killing, but the more yin aspect of the divine masculine is using rationality and logic to help to bring things back into alignment, not to use the left brain to disconnect from the heart, but it's really about the heart and the mind in union.
Yeah.
And I feel like, we're not there yet. We're still in this kind of bloodthirsty, crazy, out of control kind of time, but we're not yet seeing that integration coming back.
Swinging a machete wildly.
Right.
Cathy, I thought that was amazing what you said, that you really, I never thought of this, but you thought that the beginning of the rise of the feminine was when we took pictures of the earth from the moon.
Well, that's an image to me. The woman, the earth, clothed with the sun, standing on the moon, crowned with stars.
When were those pictures taken?
When the first moon shots, the earth, it's called Earthrise. It's
69?
From 1969.
Okay.
And that's when the whole environmental movement got birth. Earth Day and the environmental movement got birth.
Well, I'm a very big believer that Taurus is ruled by the earth. And therefore, we know what the moon is like, we know what Venus is like, we know what their natures are like through basic astrology. If you're born on Mars and Earth is in your chart, what are Earth's qualities?
Right.
That's Gaia.
What are they?
That's Gaia, and that's nurturing and abundance. Could I just say a few more things about Sekhmet, though?
Oh, I love that.
Okay. I was so lucky because I have Saturn at 29 degrees Leo. So my biggest dream was about a wounded lion and about healing that. But then I went out to Las Vegas as if I was being punished. I went to the desert and got my eagle wings, but there was a temple to Sekhmet there. And I became a priestess. And Sekhmet isn't just about raging. She had 1,000 names. They only know about 100. But she's ladies of the galaxies. She's lady of the house of learning. She's the beautiful one. She's the intoxicating one. She's the lady of the magic lamp. So she has all of these names, and I think she was probably the goddess of the Leo age. Okay, maybe not, who knows, but she's very ancient. She was way before Ra. She became the Eye of Ra way after, okay, because she was the sun, and then Ra became the sun, and then she became the Eye of Ra. And, it's like patriarchy took her over. I make up stories, and so maybe the Sphinx was originally Sekhmet. Because
I think so, for sure.
She was there before the flood. Okay, they think the Sphinx was there before the flood, and so she was like such an ancient sky goddess sun goddess, back when the sun was feminine, which in a Jungian sense meant that they had a very different consciousness back then. What would happen if ego consciousness, which we call the sun consciousness, at least in Jungian psychology, we call that the masculine now, and lunar consciousness we call the feminine. But what kind of way of thinking would we have if our ego consciousness was feminine rather than masculine? And I don't really know, and we can talk about it, but Dion Fortune in some of her books wrote about how on the outer plane the masculine is active and the feminine is receptive, but on the inner plane the feminine is active and the masculine is receptive. So there's different ways that people have evolved, and just because we've evolved in this awful patriarchal culture of ours the way we have doesn't mean that that's where we'll be in another 1,000 years, and it doesn't mean that that's who people were a long time ago.
So what was it like for little Pagano children to go to bed when mom put them to bed?
Little shits.
I could just I mean, what did they listen? I could just imagine the stories their mother told them.
Well, you know what they would do? They would go, Mom, you can come meditate, come sit with us. and I swear to God, I got pregnant one night because my kids in Switzerland, there were I went with 3 kids and came back with 4, right through my IUD. And the night that they said, come meditate, I did a journey. And I did this whole amazing journey and about being a Native American and being a Chiricahua Apache and all this stuff. And then afterwards the chief said, go celebrate. And I did. And I got Jonathan, who's 30 now. So and then when I got divorced, and I would raise them on good fantasy stories. And my sons,
I bet you did.
They said to me, thank you. And so I'll have a son who'll go, I had this dream, Mom, and I don't think I'm King Arthur, but I think I'm one of the other kings. And so even though he goes out and he's in finance, he always says to the people, he works in Dubai now or in Europe, when he goes for a job, well, where will you give the people? Like if I worked for you, what would you do for the people where your factories are and stuff? So if you teach them with stories and magic, then you get magical men.
I bet you do. Phenomenal, really. Sajit, I'm wondering if we could shift a little here, because I've been with both of you so much, and with Sally too. And you're very cavalier about your discussions about Mary Magdalene. Can you give us a little oversight for maybe people who are just starting to notice that Mary Magdalene is starting to be seen in a different light? How do you see her and her spirit?
So I definitely see her as an equal with Yeshua. I call Jesus Yeshua. I see them as an equal partnership and a really beautiful example of not just that it's an integration of the divine masculine and feminine, because she was divine feminine, he was divine masculine, but I believe that each of them within themselves was perfectly balanced, and that they were trained and went through the initiations in the temples in Egypt, and that's where they learned about how to do this integration within themselves, between the integration of the divine masculine and feminine within themselves, and then how they can come together, come together, and through the sacred sexuality practices that they also were initiated into. That was part of the process of that integration of the masculine and the feminine, the divine masculine and the divine feminine. So I see her totally as his equal, and that they were teaching together. And she was very much a rebel. I mean, it was even a patriarchal time at that time, 2,000 years ago, when they were, walking the earth in Jerusalem. It was a very patriarchal time. And so for her to take on that powerful position of really co-teaching with him, she wasn't just a disciple. She was his partner. She was his equal. And I think that took a lot of, she had to go through her own process of rebelling from the power, the patriarchal powers that were in place at that time.
Cathy?
Well, I agree totally. And I haven't made her the center of a lot of my studies, but to me, once again, she's the Sophia to the Christ consciousness. Christ consciousness to me means that we understand that we are spiritual beings. But Sophia is the mechanism by which we understand life and live it well. Okay, because what's happened with the church is that they've said, these are the rules, okay? That sucks, because if you don't live up to the rules, you're sinning.
Right.
Okay, but so we have Christ consciousness, which says, I am more than this body. I am a living soul. I'm connected to the God force. But then to me, the feminine, the divine feminine says, and I know how to listen to what the earth needs me to do and what people need me to do and what the heart needs me to do. And so Jesus and Mary Magdalene, you know, they both knew that, but he represents that logos, the divine masculine logos, but she represents the divine wisdom, which is always together, you know, in creation. You need wisdom. Today we have creators who create junk. Okay, every time I get on my computer and they've changed one of the websites, it's like it's worse. It's like just because you can invent something doesn't mean it's good for you. So we need the wisdom of that to know what creations we need and what we don't need, right?
Very, very good point.
And to me, that's Christ and Mary Magdalene, that balance. And I have to say that I love Carl Jung because he's the one who said, if you go in and you pay attention to your dreams and you do your inner work, you will free the anima from the shadow and the animus from the shadow, and then you will have that balance within yourself. You will become whole. So yay, Carl.
Fabulous. What a chart he had. Just incredible. I think we're in pretty good shape here since we're at about the 1 hour mark. Would you mind taking some questions?
That'd be great.
Yeah.
Okay. So all you got to do is raise your hand, and I'm going to keep the tape running. Patricia, go ahead and ask your question.
I have a question for you, Cathy. I've been dreaming about tidal waves since I was a small child. What does that mean?
Well, tidal waves, first of all, the ocean is the womb, right? It's the collective unconscious.
Yes.
And so many people have dreamt of that. And I think it's the rising up of the collective unconscious. And I think that's another reason the feminine's back. We have Neptune in Pisces, and we had Uranus in Pisces first. So waking up that collective unconscious. So you're one of the people at the leading edge. You're bringing in the new age. That's how I see it. Do you know what I mean?
And I have Eris and Uranus conjunct my Saturn in Aries.
Wow.
At the moment. Yes.
Okay. So right now it's saying you're restructuring your life. Yep. And you're saying, and you're getting rid of everything that does not have to do with your heart.
Yes.
Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Dreams are wonderful. Dreams are wonderful because you can't think your way into change. You only can imagine it. And dreams help you change because you're dealing with that deep imagination and you're relating to it. Right. And things change after that.
Yeah.
For those of you, I'm showing you Cathy and Sajit's websites in case you would like to peruse there. I'm sure they have their own periodic newsletters. I know I've been reading Cathy for a long time, her excellent stuff on the moon, the full moons, etc. These are their websites. I will post this once again before the evening is over. Other questions by anybody? Just raise your hand. Marilyn S. Let's see if I can find her picture. There you are. And there you are in the air. Go ahead.
Hi, thank you, ladies. I certainly have enjoyed your talk. I was noticing a connection with nature in April when I looked out my window one morning when I awoke, and there was 2 robins having sex in the tree above my bed. And alongside them were two mourning doves also having sex on the next branch. And then later that day, I was driving back from the grocery store, and I came upon a tomcat that hangs out around my neighborhood, and he was having sex with a strange female. And it all happened in one day.
Full moon is Scorpio.
I hope you went home and had some sex.
I just wanted to share that because it was something that I'll never forget. I wish I had been clever enough to grab my camera on my phone. No one would believe me.
But you know what? Sometimes the camera gets in the way of our experiencing it.
Exactly.
You know, I look at these young kids and they're constantly, it's like, put it away, just relate to your kid. Don't take a picture of them.
Well, one of the reasons I brought this up was because I wanted to ask you, do you feel like we're going to be moving into more interspecies communication? Perhaps even talking with plants or talking with trees, or having experiences where we are dancing with nature more closely.
Yeah.
I definitely think that the rise of the divine feminine and the rise of the awareness of Gaia, the presence of Gaia, not just her presence as a being, it's not just some inert planet we're walking around on, but this being that it's also about experiencing our oneness with Gaia, that we are part of her. We are totally a part of her. Again, we're not just kind of walking around. We're not some kind of like a plague on Gaia. We are part of Gaia, and we're part of all of it. And so I think that this awakening to our relationship with Gaia, our inseparability from Gaia, will certainly, I think, support people to have more of a sense of communion and communication with the plants and the animals and all of the different expressions of the life force that are
it's
part of
about
Gaia.
opening ourselves up. And I'm noticing that I am much more aware of insects. It's like an interesting dimensional segment of my awareness now, is that I am attracting experiences around insects that I have never had before.
Well, I've heard this from my herbal group, my herbal friends, that when you plant a garden, the plants that you need come into your garden. And so it's like, if we actually acknowledge that we're part of Gaia, if we're part of the earth, we're part of life, that different plants will come in, will migrate in, and the plants that you need for something that you might be sick.
This is going to sound strange, but I had a shopping center near my home built over the last 6 months, and they saved 2 huge, humongous oak trees, and they were twin oak trees. And I believe they were going to name the mall or the shopping area Twin Oaks. And about 3 weeks later, I came through there and they had cut them down, cut them down to the ground.
You can't stop nature.
Well, I had a symbiotic relationship with those 2 trees that I can't explain.
No,
well, that's a fabulous story. Zohimi that's really a good story about you get what you need.
Can I just say one thing to her? If you love trees, there's an amazing book called The Secret Life of Trees by a German guy. Yeah. And it's excellent. It describes how forests take in water and pass it on, and how they live, and the fungi under it. It's a book, The Hidden Life of Trees. Peter somebody.
Zohimi, you're unmuted now, dear. Did you want to ask something?
Hi. Hi, Cathy.
Hi.
You remember me?
Oh, yeah. Hi. I met her in Dubai. I was talking about astrology, and she was behind me. She went, "Oh, could you talk to me?" And then somebody behind her said, "I'm from Rhode Island."
Where are you, Zohimi?
In Qatar.
In Qatar? Oh,
Yeah.
hello there from America. Hello. What's your question?
Yeah, it's for
What's your,
I'm actually very interested about all this, but I am finding it hard to find information or like here in Qatar, things are not that easy in the sense that all this is very quiet down and there's no so much access to it. So I don't know if there are any books or groups or something that you suggest me to join, because I think that it is time for me to step into this kind of thing.
you speak English very well.
Yeah.
What do you guys suggest?
Well, I have, write to me and I'll send you a bunch of links.
And
Okay.
I can do the same. Yeah. You can contact me through my website, and I'll also send you some suggested links. And I think it really depends a lot on so much of what the information that's out there about the divine feminine is linked to various lineages. And so I think part of it is kind of depends in terms of for you, what would be a good kind of resource for you, or a good teacher for you, or teaching for you, may depend on kind of which lineages you feel a resonance with.
How are the women seen in Qatar?
They are, well, if there's something that I have learned while I have been living here in the Middle East, this is my 5th year, and women are actually very strong.
Good.
And
Yeah.
yeah, they're very strong, and they have managed to, I don't know if would be rule the world, but in a very hidden way. Basically, living here has helped me to discover femininity, something that
Wonderful.
I am Mexican, and
Oh.
I didn't. Although I grew up in a culture where women are supposed to be free, I think that I managed to identify the freedom of the feminine living here in the Middle East. Although they're
What about the Middle East fostered that?
I think the oppression of men fostered. Like they had to find ways to get what they wanted, or they had to find ways to be strong without being noticed that they were strong.
Wow.
And for example, they are very well, the ones that have managed to merge this, because there are others that do follow the covering, these women have managed to merge beauty with wisdom and strength. Like women here in the Middle East are strongly beautiful, beautiful. And that's something that I rediscovered. Well, I actually discovered here. And they are very strong.
How did they treat the women in Mexico?
But we thought, actually, I thought that we were free. And but there's a lot of matriarchy in Mexico, actually. Yeah. And but they are angry, like Mexican women are strong but they're still, you can see the anger.
Wow.
Here you can see Sherazad, like moving and the stories, and I tell you what to do and you do it, but you don't realize that you're doing it, and that kind of thing. It's a completely different way, which I found amazing.
Well, thank you for sharing. That was marvelous.
That was wonderful.
Really good. Ideas, Sajit? Did she make any ideas come to mind?
Well, like I was saying, I think it would be important. Like I would love to, if we have an email exchange, I'd like to find out more about what lineages you feel a resonance with, because there's not just kind of like one way to begin to learn about the goddess and embrace her energies and experience and express her. And not to say that it has to be tied to a particular lineage, But I find that often, like when I see what people are teaching and offering, what women in teaching are offering online, oftentimes it does connect with a certain lineage, whether it's the goddesses in the Hindu lineage, or for me, coming through the path of a Christ path through Yeshua's lineage. So I've been very much influenced by Mary Magdalene and Mother Mary, and Anna, who was the grandmother of Yeshua, and the whole sisterhood among the Essene women. So, and I'm sure, for Cathy, you have a whole sort of, pantheon and stories that you work with. So that would be one of my questions for you, and also for everyone here, to think about if there is a particular lineage or lineages that you really resonate with, and then what are the kind of the names and the expressions of the divine feminine that come through very strongly in those lineages.
Yeah. But I would like to say, too, that I think that it all begins in the body. As we reclaim our body and we dance and we move the energy through our bodies. I always have dance in all of my classes because that's how spirit comes into us. That's how we move. That's how we change. And so in all traditions, whether it's Yamaha, I always say her name. Yes. But if we have the Aphrodite, or if we have the Middle Eastern goddesses, I would say to you, you should find some of the goddesses from the Middle East.
Oh, yeah.
Or from Mexico.
Do you know? Well, yeah, with Mexico,
God.
you do Our Lady of Guadalupe. I was thinking of that. And there's a lot of Mayan goddesses, because you're Mayan, right?
Yeah.
So you can find the Mayan goddesses. But since you're in the Middle East, it would be interesting, because the Queen of Sheba, do you know what I mean? And then you have the Persian, the Scheherazade, and you have there's a lot of different goddess energies from ancient times from there too.
I told you she's like an encyclopedia. Sajit, it says here on your bio, and you're on the hot seat now, that she began her work with the divine feminine through sensual dance workshops. What were they like?
So really, Cathy made a great segue into that when she mentioned about connecting into the body. So my professional background and my master's degree is in dance movement therapy.
Wow.
And so for me, the body has always been a great, resource and a place of pleasure. And the way I really came into that process of teaching sensual dance and connecting with the divine feminine in that way, or through that portal, was because I discovered this happened for me when I was in my master's program, and actually in my master's in dance therapy program, they didn't actually touch on anything about sexuality, which is so weird. But I was discovering that I was having this desire to really express my sensuality and my sexuality through dance and movement. But I was really afraid to, because I had so many issues. I had such body image issues. I had issues with overeating, emotional overeating, and I'm so fat, and I'm not attractive, and I'm not sexy. And yet there was this like incredible energy that just wanted to express through me. And so first I just started dancing by myself, like in the mirror, and really enjoying that, but being afraid of like, well, nobody else would really ever enjoy this, because, I don't have the perfect sexy body that this culture says is the perfect sexy body. And then I had a partner at a certain point after that, and I said to him at some point, I'm like, I really want to do some erotic dance. Would you be willing to witness me? He's like, what do you mean would I be willing to? He's like, oh my God, please. Exactly. The camera came out, exactly. And that was an incredible liberation for me, because what I got in touch with through that process was experiencing the joy and the power and the pleasure of experiencing my sexuality from the inside out, rather than being focused on, what do I look like? What does my body look like from an outside eye?
I can't believe we had to twist the arm of a Sagittarian woman that much to get there.
Well, as a Taurus, I would like to say...
we got the both of you. Let me ask you a question I think is really good. I run up this all the time. If you had to encapsulate what an astrologer does, largely it's trying to get people to let go of control. I mean, you can talk about the planets and stuff, but it's that fear of control. You got to control what's going to happen and get rid of that part that's not flowing. Is that the feminine?
Well,
I think it's everything.
feminine is the flowing part.
What?
Yeah, the flowing part is
That's what I
feminine.
thought. That's what I thought. Because when you're not flowing, it just sucks and things just don't work.
No.
When you are flowing, it's just unbelievable.
Right.
Like you said,
You
the
see,
right
because
herbs,
we have-
the right herbs come into your garden. That's an amazing
Isn't
thought.
that an amazing thing?
Yeah.
We have people now who are teaching us how to go out and on your lawn, and you can eat all the things on your lawn. And then you see Roundup ads that say kill the dandelions, when dandelions are the best things you can eat. I want to say one thing for you, Zoe. Take belly dancing.
Wow.
You know,
Definitely.
I'm a Taurus, and
Look
I'm
at her, look at her.
overweight, and I've never felt fat. That's my trouble. I am fat, or I'm overweight, but I never feel it. I danced to Scheherazade Rimsky-Korsakov when I was little, and it's about dancing from the inside out, and belly dancing will do that for you.
Yes. And also, I think the sense of sisterhood, you know, that if you're doing belly dance in a class or in a group, you're also going to be connecting with other women and creating that sister bond. So that's a great, you know, experiential way to be connected to the divine feminine. So not just about
How come the guys can't belly dance?
I know a couple of guys who do. I do. They live in Las Vegas. I know weird people
I'll
from
go
Las
on.
Vegas.
Okay, very good stuff. Anybody else? I'm going to give everybody a chance.
Yeah, speaking of the guys, I'm wondering if the guys have any questions.
Well, there aren't many guys here.
But there's some, right?
Barbara's up next. She has a question for you.
I have a question. I lived through the 60s and the feminist movement, and I did my marching and I did my protesting and all that. And I've gone through that. Is there a way to embrace the divine feminism now without being aggressive, without being the Wonder Woman type, without being outrageous and in your face and all those kind of things?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say, from my point of view, start to do full and new moon rituals. Start to pay attention to the wheel of the year. You know, when we want to hook into the earth, hook into the seasons. What is the spiritual meaning of the seasons? What's the psychological meaning of the seasons? We're coming up to summer solstice. It's the marriage of heaven and earth. It's about fertility and growth, and it's about the sacred marriage, you know? So you ritualize that, and you do it with other women, and you stand under the moon, and you use astrology to say, well, what is this moon? Okay, and you feel that energy and you draw it down into you and you try to live with it. To me, that's one way we live with the story of the feminine. We don't need to see. Jungians talk about us as fathers' daughters. We're daughters of the patriarchy. So that's the part of us that love to go out and protest and do those things. But then there's the other side too, when we go beyond that and we just are living in the rhythms of the earth and of our own bodies. And the magic comes out from that. It's like we interface with the earth's energy, and then all of us, and if we can get rid of all the rackaroo static of the patriarchy, amazing things come to us. And that's how I would say for you to do it.
Thank you.
And pay attention to your dreams, because that's wisdom right there.
Well, I did have a dream that my husband came to me as Superman and picked me up, and we flew through the sky. And it was wonderful. It was magical. And there wasn't any wind in my face. You would think if you were flying through the air, you would just be a mess. But it was like we were nothing, like we were walking along a sidewalk, but we were flying. What the heck does that mean?
Is he your hero?
Yes, he is. He was.
Okay. Was he? So there you go. He came back to let you know, remember, there's still that love and there's still this, sense of freedom that I give you because I'm your protector and your lover and I'm your hero. Do you know? Has he passed?
Yes.
So he came back to give you that little, don't forget, you're still alive. You still have stuff to do. You can be a superhero too. Right?
Okay.
Hey, Karen, my good friend Karen, you're so educated on so many fronts. What are your thoughts tonight about all the feminine?
I think it's I think it's fascinating, and I've been taking all these notes. It really resonates. I do some study with another woman that we talk about this on a weekly basis. That what particularly resonated with me was the coming onto the scene of Donald Trump, because he just ignited the fire under everybody who was sitting there thinking, yeah, well, we're ready for a woman president, but the worst of the patriarchy is in the White House, and it's just ignited a fire under everybody else, all the women in the country. So that was the thing that stood out to me. I was laughing when she brought that up because, and I also like I love the joining or the discussion about Mary Magdalene and Joshua and how that was part of the integration of the divine masculine and feminine. That really resonated with me too. I thought it's been a great discussion. I
had a hunch. I've been wanting to do this, and it just popped up on Monday, and I said, it'd be wild put them both on there.
Well, I have one question. You know, we kind of got distracted when you asked the question, the actions to take. The one answer was follow your heart. Was there anything else that would be a suggestion on the action plan for this integration?
You know, your imagination is really the basis of everything. Out of that comes everything. So part of it is when we say follow your heart, it's like saying your head, we've been taught to fight our heart. Our head and our hearts fight, but our heart is the master and our head is the servant, okay? And so part of it is engaging with the imagination, whether you do it with journeying, whether you do it with the dream work, because when you have a question, we go right to our left brain and we say, what should I do? But that's like science, you know, that's good for science. You go to your heart and you go, what should I do? And then you go in and you ask, you know, for the answer. And then your left brain can go, okay, how do I make it so? Like Captain Picard. I always used to say, my kids used to watch Star Trek, The Next Generation, and Captain Picard is a perfectly balanced ego. He'd say, number one, Riker, what do you think? Deanna Troi, what do you feel? You know, but first we have to start with that imagination and what's the feeling. And if you're feeling something, the way you work with it is you go, I'm feeling this, give me an image. Because sometimes the emotion isn't a feeling yet. An emotion moves through us. A feeling is how we value things after we name an emotion. So you want to just say, well, give me an image for this. And an image might come up and then you work with that a bit. And that might be a way too.
One of the things that's coming up for me, it was the word connection popped into my mind as we're having this conversation about like, sort of what can I do? What can I do to cultivate the divine feminine within myself? Or what can I do to help to bring the divine feminine more, the presence more out into the world and support this process of the reemergence? And so to me, connection is very much a feminine kind of a expression and experience and desire for connection. So that kind of connection and, you know, being in relationship with yourself, in relationship with the earth, in relationship, you know, through the heart with, you know, those that you love, connecting in your community, connecting around a cause that you feel called to be a part of, connecting with the divine feminine, connecting with the divine masculine, connecting just with that sense of the divine. So to me, it's very much about connection and following your own heart in terms of what is it that you do want to be connected with? What kinds of connections really sort of inspire you, and what connections really feed and nourish your heart and help you to both give and receive love?
I wanted to get this question in before we're running out of time here. I've had the good luck of working with Cathy when I've had very specific dreams. Cathy, you make it sound very easy, and you studied with the master who made it sound so easy. Jung was unbelievable. A lot of us have dreams, and they're weird things, and we don't know where to start. And you hear these different theories. How can one become better through time at learning to get real meaning from one's dreams?
Well, first of all, we all have our original language is symbolic language. And like at the Tower of Babel, the shit hit the fan and we all lost our connection to it. So when you look at a dream, it's like if you wanted to interpret a play, let's say, or a poem, you'd say, what's the context? Where are you at? Are you at the beach? Are you at your home? Are you at your parents' home? Are you at a complex? So you say, what's the general situation? And then you in the dream is the ego. You are your consciousness. But if you look at everything else as part of you, think of it as energy, right? That's taken on a face. And so how is your ego relating to these situations? So the thing is that and then you say, well, is there a crisis or is there a resolution, right? But you begin, dream interpretation really is about understanding symbolic language. So if you're in a car and your car breaks down, go look at your car because maybe it will break down. Just like, if you dream about your husband, it could be about your husband, or it could be about how the husband and you, okay, like how you're dealing with things.
Right.
So a car, what does it do? It takes us to our goals. Like in the tarot, it's like the chariot. So if your car breaks down, your vehicle to get to your goals is no longer working. Or if you're in the car and somebody else is driving, why is your dad driving your car instead of you? Or why are you in the back seat, right? So it's important. Like there's dream dictionaries, but this is the one thing I always look up because there was a class on this at the Young Institute. But I look up, people have teeth dreams, falling out. I've lost my teeth.
Wow.
A lot of people have that dream. Okay. It's a very typical dream. I had lost my teeth. And so usually dream dictionaries go, somebody's talking about you or you're afraid you're not beautiful. But the unconscious is ancient. So that's just American bullshit. Your teeth aren't white enough, whatever. So you say, what do teeth do? They begin the digestion process. Yeah. So if you lose your teeth, you are not digesting your life experience. You have lost the ability to digest, to eat life and to digest it, right? You don't have those tools. They've fallen out. I have to give a little chuckle because I just remembered a dream I had at the Young Institute. I dreamt that all my teeth fell out and my therapist's eyes were like, good. And I said, but a third set was coming in. And he got very disappointed because he couldn't tell me that I was, I wasn't dealing with things right. So lots of people have different types of dreams. So you want to say, well, what does this symbolize? What's the meaning of this?
You play with it.
And you walk around it. You say, what's the association? Who is this person? Why is this person from high school in my dream? What do I remember about that person? That's an energy in me. How am I relating to it? But out of the dreams, you can come back to some of the gifts that you have. Like if you dream about your music professor at college and you don't play music anymore, then you might say, I'm going to go play some music. So you can operate on many levels.
Before I get to my final question, which is Erica's, I want to mention something, and I feel stupid saying this. I had to go through that process after 20 years of astrology, and now into my 35th year. I had to start interpreting in my mind left brain would say, well, that's not probably not right. That's a dumb thing to think. That can't be it. And that will go on forever. And I had to finally start saying, let it be. Your mind's picking it up. You're starting to sense it. And the more I let it be and let it grow, the more it speedily went towards accuracy. It really did. So I think I'm kind of answering my own questions. Thank you so much for everything. Let's hear from Erica, our final question of the evening. Go ahead, dear.
Thank you. So I'm curious whether getting in touch with our bodies on a daily basis, when you get up in the morning, just trying to be present in your body would be the best way for us to get in touch with our divine feminine or our divine masculine. Just try to, because we're so out of touch with our body and we think of our body as being something attached to us rather than being us. Would that be a simple way of doing it?
Yes, definitely. And in terms of, I thought it was interesting that you mentioned both the masculine and the feminine in terms of the body. And so in terms of movement in the body is a really great way to experience the essential qualities in a very direct way through your own body. So for example, the more yin aspects of the feminine would be more curving, flowing kinds of movements, kind of things that we associate with the belly dancing and the water element. And there's that sense of being able to flow with change and to get moving, especially if you're stiff in the morning and tight. So those would be movements that, the kind of qualities of movements that help to cultivate your experience of the divine feminine. And then the masculine energies, the divine masculine energies as expressed through the body and through movement would be more linear and more direct. And you can think of something that, that penetrates and that cuts through. Okay. And you can even use music to support that, to use very flowing music, and then also to use more rhythmical, more staccato kinds of movements, and the kicking and the punching, and really bringing up that yang energy. And it's a great way to start the day with a real sense of balance, as well as a strong sense of connection to your body.
Well,
that's awesome. Thank you.
Can I add one more thing? When you move through your body, if something hurts, right, you need to work it a little, right, as you go through your body, let's say your shoulder, but also sit there and feel it and see if you can get an image. Maybe there's something in your body, like if your shoulders are tight and it's like, oh yeah, I feel like I'm carrying the world. What's back there? And you see if you can get an image, because once again, the imagination or the image is the right brain, feminine, more feminine side of us. So that's another way to get in touch with it, because as we get in our bodies, it has things to say to us. So it's about connecting. Okay, like Sajit said, connect to what it's about listening. Do you know? And
yeah.
I think what I'm hearing is we need to have you two back on this show again sometime, because you fit right in and no lack of...
Well, we got the Gemini Sag moon tonight. I think that we're talking like that.
That's right. But I want to thank you both so much, and let's hear it for them. And we really appreciate you both coming from New Mexico and Rhode Island, two different corners of the country. And
the wet and the dry.
Yeah, we really appreciate it. And we really appreciate this Zoom software that's allowing us to do this. I want to thank you all. This will be on YouTube tomorrow sometime in the afternoon. You can watch it till you got it all memorized. Next week, we'll just see what happens. I wish you all the best.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you so much, Rick. And thanks for the great questions.
Yeah.
Well, you guys fit like a glove, and thank you once again for coming. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in.
Thank you.
We will
Thanks,
see you next week.
Thank you.
Thanks, Cathy.
All right.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.